Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next 15 minutes with. I'm joined by James Knott at BGL Partners. Hi, James.
Hello there, Hannah. How are you doing? Great to meet you.
And you, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. So first of all, tell us more, if you can, please, about BGL Partners and how the business came about.
Right, we're a firm of chartered surveyors, and one would argue that a lot of business folk don't really understand what chartered surveyors do. But we're the sort of professional firm that gets involved in business rates mitigation, commercial agency, strategic advice on business space, and lease matters. But we are a specialist team. Predominantly, we're involved in advising on business rates mitigation, dealing with the valuation office agency, the body responsible for assessing property for rating purposes, and with billing authorities, the local councils that collect it. And so we're involved in that process, and ultimately to reduce our clients' rate liability. And sometimes that's via an appeal process called check challenge appeal. And sometimes it's about looking at relief angles. And so there is a due diligence process that we follow, which involves, prior to any formal action where it's appropriate, to visit the subject property, undertake a measured survey, look at the lease, because rateable values, rating assessments, they're based on an assumed open market rental value going back in time. And so one has to look and analyse the evidence on a subject property. And there are other things, external things like building works, nuisances that can be very close and long term, and offer all sorts of issues, operational issues, noise, dust, and various other things like major road closures. Those are sorts of things that over a duration of a revaluation period can lead to meaningful savings, backdated savings. And there are also situations where the advice is do nothing, because if the VO find out about that, then your assessment would go up. And as things currently stand, and this is about to change for the 2023 revaluation, the onus is on the valuation office agency or billing authority to find out about any bits they're missing, floor area issues or improvements that have been made. But there is a looming change from next April, albeit I'm not so sure it will be starting from the beginning of April, that the government has said they will be introducing a duty to notify provision on ratepayers. And effectively that will be to sort of fess up on if there is a difference between what the valuation office agency have on their summary valuation for your space. It will probably involve confirming what your floor areas are, if there are bits that are missing on that, if you've made improvements. It could be where you've installed aircon and that's not been reflected. If you've made extensions to properties, those sorts of things that one should start preparing for now. But that's an overview. And BGL, we've been going for I think it's our 13th or 14th year. And interestingly, there are 11 of us, so we're a small niche specialist firm, but we all work together at one particular firm, went different ways, and we've come back together. And we love working closely with our clients, and being a bit smaller helps in that regard. I'm one of the partners here, and so we've got a high level of the number of partners, and we prefer to have senior level contact. And the closer we work with our clients, the more we tend to pick up on change over time and changing circumstances, whether it's an internal refurb or you're underutilizing space as a client. That creates opportunity if we know about it. So that's a very waffly overview of what we're about and who we are.
Fab, thank you. And that's why and we'll talk about how we know each other in a moment, but that's why in my office management and ops management roles, I've always maintained a close relationship with a lot of my, service providers and suppliers, because you never know where that quick 15-20 minute conversation or catch up coffee can lead to, because when you know what your client's up to is where you can potentially add the most value. So there's a really good point there that, keep in touch with your commercial surveyor company and have one at your fingertips as well, if you don't already, because you can get so much from them, like you say, lease negotiations and things as well as rates. So really important. So you've just mentioned your role there is partner, so what sort of things does that involve for you day to day?
Well, I suppose I get involved in the operational side. So apart from working with the surveyors on what they do, the technical side of things, a lot of what I do involves client relationships, and I would rather us kind of go to the client with our contacts with an issue, or to educate them on something, or challenge them on something in terms of how they should think about property, particularly in a business rates context. And so part of what I do, I write the kind of quarterly updates, and occasionally kind of try to make the subject of business rates, which is complex and boring, arguably, into kind of a meaningful, relevant context, so that it can be more understood, or opportunities can be more understood.
Sure.
And one example of that is, if we're aware of something before it happens, we can have a game plan, a mitigation game plan in place. Whereas sometimes if you find out about change or refurbishment after it's happened, the opportunity for short-term savings may have gone. So being kind of, like I say, part of the process of working with clients and educating them, that's sort of my role. And I get on the phone a lot. If we're acting for someone in a building, we will want to know who is acting for whom else on other floors in that building, if it's an office or neighbouring units on an industrial estate. That's really important, because we used to be able to look on the Valuation Office Agency website and it would tell us who was involved, what firm of surveyors was acting for that ratepayer. And that information is all gone now. So the only way sometimes is via direct contact with the different occupiers to find out who is advising them, assuming they are being advised. But liaising with firms of surveyors on an approach to the Valuation Office on a matter is important, really is.
Absolutely, yeah. So do you remember how we met, how we know each other?
Yeah, I remember seeing you across a meeting room of one of our clients. We were there already involved in a business rates context, but there was some change afoot. I think the plan was to move from the current office into a new one. So we were in kind of strategic thinking mode. And I must admit, I didn't realise at the time that you already thought very strategically about property, which was very healthy to see. To have, if you're going to exit a property, you've got to think in advance, and having time on your side if it's exercising a break or ahead of a dilapidations claim. It's very important to have a plan of action, and to prepare for an exit strategy really is the key thing. And so it was in that context, and like I said, it was reassuring to see that the main contact, Andrew, was getting your input and knowledge. It doesn't always happen that way.
No, it doesn't. No. Luckily, because they were also my client, they listened to me quite a lot. But it doesn't always happen. And I think, again, it's through experience, because I've been through, dilapidations exercises, moves, rates exercises, where we've been doing works or had works going on in buildings near us. And I've had that good relationship with our commercial property advisors, and just done those regular catch-ups by default, or they've been ringing me, and I've been saying, what's going on. And it's just that relationship, really, isn't it, that I learn from, because I know you're expert and I'm not going to know everything about rates or delapse again, or lease negotiation and going into arbitration and all the other things that get involved when you're looking at rent and rate reviews, and there's so much to it. So it is really leaning on people like you who are expert and know your thing in the industries that you support. So
a relationship
count,
in any productive professional advisory relationship, if you're in regular contact, that is really important. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, it's the only way I've learned. I didn't go to rates college or anything like that. This is how I've learned, asking. I'm kind of nosy as well, so it helps.
Yeah, curiosity is a good point.
Why do we have to do this? That's one of my favorite questions growing up in my office management career. Why? So that leads us nicely on to, how do you work with office operations facilities managers, and how do you support them?
Well, I think there's initial practical advice. So we can access a lot of information about the subject property, other floors in that building, what that building itself has been compared to. And it's amazing how often one can spot errors, or sometimes situations where an assessment has been undercooked. So opportunities are sometimes spotted as part of an initial desktop review of an assessment.
Yeah.
And also it's about understanding the history, the point at which a company moved in. Did they get relief at the beginning of their lease if there was a big fit out period, or was the billing start date too early? And also kind of get into a situation where ideally we get the opportunity to go and look at the property, and once we're instructed, if we believe there's something to progress, undertake the due diligence process, measure the space, and begin the process of like I say, preparing a game plan. But before it gets to an instruction, it's to, I suppose, review potential. And sometimes, like I say, there are some obvious savings angles, or I use the term potential savings angles, because you still need to measure the property and look at the lease and analyze the rent, even if there's something obvious. And that could be particularly like this late stage of the current revaluation cycle, the 217 revaluation cycle that ends on the 31st of March of this year. If there has been a reduction in the valuation basis, the level per square metre that's been applied to all floors in a building, if one floor has already been reduced, then that's a significant helpful evidence to suggest that the other floors are probably incorrect too, if they're in at the original basis. So that's one example.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we can get a lot of background information on the subject property before, from the initial kind of get-go.
Yeah, doing the background research. And that's why it's important as well, I think, to to that point, when you are an office manager, just to add another tip in there while we're sharing advice, is to make sure you're in touch with other office managers and other people doing what you do in your building, because that's how you might understand and learn, oh, they've saved money. How did they do that? If you've never heard of, everybody probably knows what rates are, but again, if you've not been given access to your budget, which a lot of office managers aren't, you might not know what they are, and that you have to pay this bill monthly or quarterly or per annum, whatever your business chooses to do with it. But yeah, going and networking with other people in your building and having those conversations is really important, because that very story that you've said there can come out, and then you can get in touch with someone like James and say, help, let's do the same as they've just done and get some rebate, please. So yeah, really important. So what do you enjoy the most about your job and working with office managers? You've cited that rates are boring. I don't think so. I think every aspect of office management, including rates, is interesting, because it's all so diverse. But what do you enjoy about it?
I'm a people person. And the one thing that, particularly if we're trying to find out who else is involved in a building, I'm sort of in my element really in terms of just trying. I mean, a lot of office managers are probably kind of on the receiving end, particularly at the moment, from different firms of surveyors, and there are some kind of rating cowboy firms out there that they're not chartered surveyors. They don't, they'll say what you want to hear rather than reality. Yeah. But the ability to kind of engage and explain it in a way that hopefully makes sense. I love that side of things. So it's the energy you put into things that is what you get out, and that's true of what we do as a firm of chartered surveyors.
Fab. And to finish off on, because we've already given a few nuggets of advice there, but what would you say are your top tips for people in office management, in charge of properties, coming at it from the area that you are an expert in rates?
Well, I think it's there is a change to the rating system taking place in April, the new 2023 rating and evaluation period. The draft list figures were published in late November by the Valuation Office Agency. And there is a deadline, a really important deadline coming up, 31st of March 2023. If your firm doesn't have a professional advisor, a specialist rating advisor, kind of appointed already, then seek professional advice. It's so wise, and have time on your side. The next few weeks, the closer we get to March and the arrival of the new rate demands, it's going to be a crazy period. So explore, check, review this sort of issue. There's potentially 6 years worth of savings back to the 1st of April 2017. And there is a limited time to influence or correct any errors, factual errors to do with the new draft list figures before the rating list goes live on the 1st of April 2023. So use that time wisely. Rating is kind of important because it's a major fixed cost. The rate liability is a major fixed cost. But very rarely is it urgent and vying for the attention of the important urgent things that are on our plates. But rating has suddenly become important, but in the busyness of all the other things, maybe a lot of business folk don't realise that yet. And I know office managers, they are in influential positions and they can make the difference on this sort of issue, something that often falls between operational stalls. So yeah, that's what I would encourage. That is my top tip. Seek professional advice, guidance. It might be from the agent that put you in if they do business rates, but we're very happy to give, or I can give informal guidance and advice to any OMP member that wants to tap into my knowledge or our collective knowledge as a firm on this property tax.
Fab, very good. Well, we're going to put this post out so that people know before March to have a look at this and address this with their execs, because yeah, there's some serious money involved in rates, right? So it is, as you say, it's important. It might not be urgent, but it's growing more urgent the closer we get to that deadline. Otherwise, when it's gone, it's gone. So
yeah.
Fab. Well, thank you so much for giving up 15-ish minutes. I'm not sure how we are on time, but 15-ish minutes with us, James. Really nice to catch up and see you.